Welcome to the Trek Wars podcast, the one podcast that dares to answer the most important question in fandom, which is better, Star Trek or Star Wars, by going through both franchises in chronological release order. My name is Kenny Madison. I am the Star Trek contingent, and with me, as per always, is executive co-host
Aspen Webster, Star Wars contingent, and executive bitch.
And if you're wondering where you've seen Aspen before, you must realize that Aspen wrote a waltz, wrote the first Bible, painted the Vitruvian Man, invented the wheel.
Also invented the flying machine. Also invaded Carthage.
Burned London to the ground.
Burned London to the ground. Yeah. I also did a cool ship maneuver where I turned my ship on its side. I also had a blockade on a planet. God, I'm so famous. You'd never know.
Aspen, like a storm coming in to a planet. That's right. We're talking about Requiem for Methuselah from Star Trek, the original series, season 3, versus Storm Over Ryloth from Star Wars, the Clone Wars, season 1.
Yeah. I'm not an executive bitch. I've been feeling bad about saying that for the last 2 minutes.
Exactly. That's what your position is.
But like a cool bitch, man, like a witch bitch. I'm an executive witch bitch, baby.
That's absolutely fine.
Witch bitch, baby.
Great.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Aspen, should we get to synopses for people that are playing the home game?
Yeah. I love that. Oh my gosh. Am I starting? Are you starting?
I'm starting.
Okay.
For the TV guide, circa 1969, Requiem for Methuselah. The men of the Enterprise intrude on a private paradise inhabited by two remarkable individuals. Flint, a man of extraordinary scientific and artistic accomplishments, and Flint's beautiful ward, Reyna, superbly educated, but completely insulated from all human emotions.
Cute.
Requiem for Methuselah, written by Jerome Bixby, first aired. I got it in my notes.
You got it.
Directed by Murray Golden, and first aired, I'm sure that it was in January of 1969.
I believe you. I know it was 1969.
Do you know the song?
We went to the 1969.
Even Stevens just passed me over completely.
It's wild to me.
Aspen, happy Valentine's Day. This episode premiered February 14th, 1969.
That's truly the most romantic thing you could have released on that day.
I don't know, Aspen. We got Storm Over Ryloth coming up.
Well, that was released a little after Valentine's Day, but still in the month of February. So
excellent.
Pretty close.
That's wild.
I mean, if you're talking about a real love story, and the love story is about believing in yourself when it comes to getting people killed.
Absolutely, it does.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, what?
What? It'll be okay. It'll be fine. Okay. I know we'll get into this when we get into the like behind the scenes, a thing we do.
Yeah.
But I and also definitely first impression stuff, deep dive things. But I was like, this episode is doing it for me. There's obviously stuff happening that we can talk about, but it's doing it for me in the way that when you watch something and you're like, yeah, this is good. Like versus when you watch something and you're like, ugh, right? And I looked up and I realized Jerome Bixby wrote Mirror Mirror. He wrote Day of the Dove. I'm like, so that's an extremely composite. Well, he wrote things with DC Fontana too, but like I'm realizing a very competent writer who, gets Star Trek, and like has interesting ideas. And I was like, no, okay, I got it. I see. Mm-hmm. Like, even if it's like, oh, that was pretty good. At least we're like exploring concepts,
Yes. Which, again, we'll get into this.
Yeah.
So we'll get into this, but like
Jerome, am I right?
We haven't had that much exploration of things.
Right. There is a little bit of like, I'm a thirsty man in the desert.
Oh boy.
Storm Over Ryloth. Clone Wars, Star Wars Clone Wars, released February 27th, 2009. What have we been? No, not that year. Leap year. It could have been February 29th. That would have been cool. Anyway, let's see. And it was written by, Henry Gilroy is the series writer. Who was that one? Oh, it was George Christic, who's the writer on this one. And then it was directed by Brian Colin O'Connell, an extremely Irish name. Here is our description. The Separatists have invaded the Twi'lek home planet of Ryloth, hence Storm Over Ryloth. I believe this is the first of 3 in this little arc. Anakin and Ahsoka lead a squadron of fighters against a Trade Federation battleship commanded by Nemoidian Captain Mar Tuk. More specifically, this is not going into it in the way that I want it to. First, Ahsoka leads a squadron of fighters, and the propelling force of this episode is that she loses most of her squadron due to not following orders and kind of acting recklessly. And then she has to manage and deal with her guilt, her shame, and Anakin effectively actually is an extraordinary mentor, leading into both his, I'm getting into editorializing, but in terms of kind of reflecting on his own tendencies and then guiding her toward greater confidence with a new strategy. So that's rad episode. The rad
episodes. But before we get into our deep dive, we got some correspondence to deal with.
Great.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
My God.
From Austin Aaron.
Is he gonna make fun of us for horny month?
We'll see. The subject line reads, new song idea, podcaster's delight. Go! Not entirely sure what that means.
Podcaster's delight. Every day I'm listening to my Star Wars. Is that what we want?
Yeah, that's right. You're listening to, you never watch a single episode of Star Wars. You always
listening to my Star Wars. Yeah.
All right.
Go on.
Here we go. Hello from Austin. Hello. My head was full of normal questions like, if you had to pick a third franchise to add to this podcast, which would it be? Batman.
What about that one that I've never seen? What is it called again?
Stargate?
Nope, the other one.
Battlestar Galactica?
The other one.
Doctor Who?
No. It's got aliens, it's people on a ship, but does it start with a B? Is it B?
B? It's not. Babylon 5.
Babylon 5. Yeah.
We would run out of things so fast, but also that'd be fun.
Okay.
But that's not the question.
Okay.
And also, I would add Batman because I'm on a Batman kick at the moment.
Great.
And what does it mean that all the characters in Clone Wars are so caked up?
As in full of makeup?
Voluptuous?
So they have a lot of
Cake?
makeup on?
Like
They look really smooth?
Cake. They got a lot
Really
of butt.
smooth?
I
Smooth
think
face?
that means that they got a lot of butt.
Do you think that's what that means?
Austin, Aaron, write in and tell us what you mean with it's so kicked up. But then I heard the post-credits chat last week and I got derailed.
He listens all the way through.
Yeah.
That's really funny. I didn't know anybody did.
I too love the single screen theaters and the cool things they've been showing in Austin. Nosferatu's silent synced at the Millennium was great. But I note to all the introduction slinging and speech making proprietors of those venues, stop. Context providing should always happen after a work of art, never before. Disagree. This is a hill I will die on. If you made something cool or want an audience to understand the time at which a piece of art was made, provide a talkback session or panel after it's been seen. Don't give us an introduction. Don't set the stage. Let the art speak for itself first, even if it's your art. It's a choice to include or not include context within the art itself, and artists have to live with that choice. The art is that choice to some degree, and there is no way to provide true context to a piece through a singular introduction because context is never going to be universal. We all have our own experiences outside of art. Let the audience have their own experience inside art. Thanks for letting me rant about a throwaway comment you made in the last 30 seconds of your podcast. A rabbit robot with a big ass, Austin Aaron. See, it was having big butts. That's what it means about the Clone Wars characters.
I see. Caked up. I
very much understand Austin Aaron's perspective. What do you think, Aspen?
I agree.
You agree with Austin Aaron?
I think it depends. Yeah, I agree with Austin Aaron. I agree with Aaron. I think it depends on the type of context we're giving.
Mhm.
I'm thinking of like the Terror Tuesday nights.
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember what we were talking about with that, but the Terror Tuesday nights at the Alamo Draft House, I feel like there's a context there that is specific because that is actually run by a guy who has collected all like it's part of his collection,
Yeah.
and his context is actually about his own. Usually, it's like kind of his personal experience with something, and I think that's very engaging. But
Yes.
I am of the opinion. I am of a very similar opinion of I I like to like know a touch about what I like to know what I'm kind of like sort of getting myself into.
Mhm.
I think that art should okay, here's what I agree with him on I'm trying to find, which is what he is sort of getting at as a touch of the death of the artist kind of concept, which is once you've put your art into the world, it belongs to the consumers of the art as well. So you might have had an intention for that art, and that is very valid. But if someone takes in your art and maybe takes it in a different way, that is also a very valid interpretation. This can get muddy. We, of course, we also can't control how people take in art, right? We cannot control that. And we
Mm.
cannot dictate that once that art is out in the world.
I'm thinking about what else? Star Wars
Sure.
and the religious fervor that it is now revered as,
Mhm.
where you have to fit a very specific vision of what Star Wars is. That thing that you and I talk about, which is what is the feeling of Star Wars? We know it when we see it, but we can't precisely articulate it all the time. Even though you and me are like, we want it to be in new and different directions. But at the same time, because it existed in amber for so long, basically,
Yeah.
it is this kind of religious idea as opposed in terms of like how the rest of Star Wars should be executed as opposed to what Lucas intended it as originally, which is just like I want to do a style exercise because it would be fun.
Right. Well, and even the idea of Lucas, once his work is out there getting to decide, I mean, Lucas himself is the one fighting back against
Yeah.
this idea that he got to decide the narrative after a certain point of being the ultimate arbiter of what this is. And there's a like for better or worse kind of idea. But yeah, like to say, oh, we need to be true to this vision. And it's like, this is what it is for you.
Hmm.
And we do all explore and engage with these properties in this property and in these different stories in very different ways.
Yeah.
My favorite story about Death of the Author that I've told, I'm sure before, and I will just tell you again, because I think this is a really good example, is the season 2 Fleabag bit about how in Fleabag, when she breaks the fourth wall and turns to the audience and makes a comment. For the first whole season, it's just something she does. By the second season, she starts to spend time with Hot Priest, and he can tell
I know
when
what you're talking about. I
she
know
he can
exactly what you're
tell when
talking about.
she
Yeah.
breaks that fourth wall. He's like, "What are you doing? Where'd you go?" When I watched that, I took that in so wholly and fully as it's almost like her disassociation from the moment of like her
Hmm.
anxiety and her coping mechanism. And it's that he is so present with her that he can notice those moments of her trying to check out.
Yeah.
And that's how I took it. Phoebe Waller-Bridge came out later as being like, "It's because he's close to God." And I was
No,
like, "Ha,
no, that's not
no."
true at all.
But that's what she intended. That's by
Sure.
no means how I took it in. And I gotta
It's
tell you, his closeness to God means nothing to me, but the idea of disassociation and someone being so present with you emotionally that they're with you, that
yeah.
means everything to me, you know?
See, and here's where I am for the notion of providing context. And I completely understand Austin Aaron's idea.
Mhm.
I think not providing context would work with more traditional pieces of art, more recent pieces of art. And also, for my birthday, I went to go see Speed Racer, a movie that I brought a fair amount of friends to. And I was like, please, for my birthday, I want to watch Speed Racer. And then the folks at Hyperreal Film Club provided the context of when Speed Racer was released and like how visionary that movie is and how it has influenced so many things
Mhm.
subsequently, even
Yeah.
though it made like $12 and a bottle of Ozarka at the box office.
Oh, not even Dasani.
Not even Dasani. It was an
Jeez.
Ozarka, which is really unfortunate.
Yikes.
And so couple that with the Terror Tuesday context providing, where someone is providing how they love this. And then if you are able to place a thing within a specific time, explain kind of the context of the time, because something that is also present within an audience experience is the context of time.
Mm-hmm.
Some Die Hard in 1989 is going to mean something different than watching Die Hard for the first time in 2024.
It's true.
And you're going to be like, wow, this is a very right-wing movie. Because it is. It still rules. But
I guess,
just
but
radically
I guess
different.
There is a difference though between like the cultural effects of a film and giving that context and standing up there in front of you and saying, watching Die Hard here in 2024, you'll notice it's a very right-wing film because of our current context versus how, you know what I mean? So I think there is a difference between being like, this is those two things are very different things.
Mm-hmm.
I get to decide for myself watching Die Hard how I'm relating to it, especially given its current context now. I get to decide that for myself. So if someone said it at the top, I'd be like, okay, like I guess that's true, or it robs me of my experience of getting to realize. But
if someone explained like the historical context of how Die Hard was made, when Die Hard was made,
sure,
where maybe Bruce Willis was in terms of his career, where John McTiernan was in terms of his career, how this movie was oddly a work for hire thing and just happened to be possibly the best action film of all time.
I wonder. I think this is so interesting. Like maybe there's a midpoint.
I don't think that there's a right answer. I think it's on a case by case basis.
Sure.
Yeah.
God, we should say something else that's wild in the last 10 seconds.
Agreed. Even though I listen to every single episode, I gotta listen to the last 30 seconds of.
That's really funny.
We still have more correspondence to get to.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. I was like, oh, this is it. That's really funny because sometimes when I would edit, I'd like cut off what we were talking about because I thought it was a funny joke, and now I'm realizing that it's much better if we just leave it on.
Yeah. Thank you, Austin Aaron. And then we have a comment on our YouTube channel.
Cute.
From Plato's Stepchildren versus Lair of Grievous. This is a fabulous content, by the way, from @NathanU1899. On the subject of Grievous and disability. I know, right? I think he's somewhat emblematic of a somewhat troubling recurring motif throughout Star Wars. Star Wars will often use the imagery related to technology and industry to represent the forces of evil and natural imagery to represent the forces of good.
Yeah.
See Second Death Star versus Forest Moon of Endor. You also go back to Death Star versus Yavin. Yavin's taking place in a stone temple. Yes. Obviously, this plays into meaningful commentary about how imperialism will often use mass industry to prop themselves up, even at the expense of the health of the natural world. However, when this imagery is used in relation to the body, it becomes a bit more dicey. Both Grievous and Vader are associated with this motif of evil technology by showing it replacing parts of their bodies, but this imagery can't help but evokes the idea of prosthetics and almost ends up painting prosthetics as themselves evil. This is really unfortunate, especially given that there's already a stigma against people who need those accommodations. It's likely rooted in existing ableist tropes around people with deformities as evil. I think we can see this really clearly in the 2003 Clone Wars series, where Anakin's vision quest shows his fall to the dark side is explicitly tied to his robot hand. And whilst metaphorically interesting and visually striking, its implications are unfortunate. But bringing things back to the episode at hand, one of the things I like about this episode is the ambiguity of how Grievous came to be this way. Without direct reference to any kind of accident, it neatly sidesteps the disability issue and becomes more of a parable of toxic self-improvement. I give that 3 snaps. For all we know, Grievous may have always been able-bodied and simply valued the way his cybernetics made him more lethal. In this way, he's not only reflective of Fisto's former Padawan, but perhaps of the war as a whole, all parties striving to become stronger and stronger at the expense of their own humanity. Grievous is a one-man arms race.
Oh, what a cool take.
That comment is fire.
That comment is fire. And I think it's an extraordinarily interesting conversation. I wonder, something that they said there kind of sparked for me, like the idea of Grievous's origin as what is canon, but like I guess the story of it, which as I understand it to be, which is he was made to be this thing.
Yep.
Like what does that like the kind of robbing of agency in that case, like that kind of argument is actually very cool and does give him so much power over his own body, his own desire to move towards something. Yeah, that beautiful phrase in there. The idea that it is taken away and he is now indebted through those cybernetics, that is its own, that's actually a real horror. Not the disability itself, but like the taking away what is him to take away his power, even though he has this kind of physical power. What is that? Taking away the sort of agency type of power.
Yeah.
Is its own sort of conversation. But yeah, what a fire comment.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything that I could add to that. What an extraordinarily insightful comment, and please keep writing in.
Oh my god, just say nice. Not you don't have to say nice things, but say cool things, guys. You gotta say cool things.
Speaking of cool things, speaking of cool things, why don't we go ahead and get into our first impressions?
Yay! Fire.
We have a good episode, and we have like
a great episode,
an extraordinary episode.
Yeah.
Something that I am a fan of, just in terms of surprising narrative sparseness. A real character piece.
Oh, Storm Over Ryloth.
Oh yeah,
is although there is some interesting battle dynamics, but not battle dynamics for the sake of themselves, which I grow very bored with. I like when...
Sorry, what?
I grow very bored with that.
I grow very tired of these battles.
I'm very tired. I'm just so tired of all these Star Wars,
If what I understand, Clone Wars, the timbre of Clone Wars changes, and it's not just Battle of the Week.
No.
It seems to be a lot in this first season, and make no mistake, like I told you, I'm enjoying watching Clone Wars. And also, if this was 7 seasons of just kind of this, I get sleepy. And I'm not sleepy. And this episode clearly is like, oh, we're doing something very different.
Oh, yes.
Here. Something that, dare I say it, is a little emblematic of Empire Strikes Back.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe
not just in terms of the fact
that you dared.
I know, not just in terms of the fact that Ahsoka loses, which eventually she wins, but just in terms of an episode that is preoccupied more with putting the characters through an emotional journey as opposed to plot stuff.
Plot.
We got to have a plot happen. The plot is an extension of let's put this character through the ringer, which is
in my
exquisite.
In my opinion, is ideal.
IMO.
IMHO. Plot is characters wanting things and relationships. That's all it really is. And which is why, especially in a context of like a battle show or is it a war movie or something, it would not be interesting to me if it were not driven by how it affects, like the choices we make in these battles are affecting these people and their relationships to each other and what that means. Yeah, this is actually, I feel like I kept hinting toward this episode for a while. Like sometimes things would happen. I'd just be like, just you wait until like Ahsoka gets everyone killed. Like, it is fixed pretty fast, but yeah, it's a pretty beautiful episode.
It's a gorgeous episode, and I think indicative of, I have a sneaky suspicion, it's indicative of stuff to come.
Yeah, that kind of comment about the idea of if it were just this over and over again, I feel like it feels a lot like other shows that get to have their first season of sort of being like, this is an establishing element. This is the idea, like a Buffy, where it's like...
I was thinking the exact same thing, Aspen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like a really good example of it, of like, obviously the first season of Buffy rules. And then also it gets to grow and be so many more things. So people are often like, it's bad. I'm like, it's not bad. It's just establishing something. And then you get to try out new ideas. And yeah, and no spoilers, but like Clone Wars gets to have a lot of fabulously interesting arcs that are not just about these battles. It's about turmoil. It's about finding pieces of who they are. It's just interesting stuff. I think. And so I'm now realizing why people typically rank season 1 lowest, but it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it gets to become so extraordinary, right?
Yeah,
that it's like, wow.
It's still good.
Fire show. A fire show.
I'm already committed to the premise of the podcast. I'm already committed to watching all of Clone Wars. You don't need to convince me anymore.
Every week I'm so excited. What a good show. What'd you like best of this episode? Tell me.
This is going to sound pretentious as hell, but the script just like, she failed, and we just live in that for a while. And it's not like even we start trying to assign solutions immediately. It's just like, we just live in that. The episode stops so we can feel.
And Filoni talks about that too in his Filoni Zoni, where he was saying,
I wanted to make a planet full of feeling.
Yeah, he's like, we weren't sitting with Ahsoka's pain enough. I want to see a 14-year-old suffer. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he does. Well, he even said it was like one of the episodes that took a lot of like kind of like editorial editing, I guess, like
editorial editing.
Yeah. Like he talked about adding in certain, like there's that scene where she's with Rex and another kind of not a commander. She's a commander, so someone else who's kind of high up in the ranks. And there's like these holograms they're looking at, and he said he like added those sections because he just needed more time for her to just sit and feel. Because he was saying they're like, we're not spending enough time with Ahsoka just being and feeling these feelings, like that's the vibe. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good emotional characterization, good characterization and like emotional expression. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah, that's the thing that helped Star Wars evolve from just showing archetypes versus Empire, deepening our understanding of who these characters are, what makes them tick, making them more complex, and suddenly taking them from 2D to 3D.
Yeah. And which helps because the entire show is in 3D.
It is. That's true.
So,
and every single time I go up to the TV and I try to flatten it,
just like
I put one hand behind the TV and one hand in front of the TV, and I go,
like a little fly. Well, you can't because now it's 2-3-dimensional, even for your little hands. That's right. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You can only see the digipack on YouTube. YouTube.com/@TrekWarsPod.
Just YouTube.com.
YouTube.com.
Y'all heard about YouTube? Y'all heard about the YouTubes?
It's all the rage 5 years ago. Yes.
12. I am with you. I think it's fantastic. I think other pieces of it that I love, in addition to, I have to cough. I'm gonna pause.
Aspen is coughing.
Dinner had jalapenos in it, and sometimes they come back to haunt you.
Oh, that reminds me. New segment, Aspen's Dinner Report. Aspen, what'd you have for dinner tonight?
I had fake beef bulgogi with rice and mushrooms.
It's called beef bulgogi.
Bulgogi. And for some reason, I'm forgetting what that Korean sauce is called.
I just call it sauce.
Okay, we'll remember it. I'm too too taken over by my spice. It had jalapenos on it. Anyways, isn't that great?
It is great. And that's been Aspen's Dinner Report. Aspen, for more dinner report updates, where can they find you?
You can talk to my partner, Joel. He's the one who cooks dinner. So, it's nice. It's really nice of him. The other piece is that I want to just point out is also relationship building. Like, this is one of the gentler moments I've seen with Anakin and Ahsoka. And I was talking about it a little bit at the top when we were mentioning before we got into this deep dive piece, which is she fucks up. She takes out the squadron. She thinks, okay, I can make this. We can break through. We can break through this blockade. And it just starts going wrong. And the oh my God, what's his name? You must come back. What's that dude's name? He's also the announcer guy. What is, like, I can't remember that character's name. I know.
Wolf.
I should know this.
Wolf.
Wolf.
His name's Wolf.
His name's Wolf of Wall Street.
Clone Wars Wolf.
Admiral, is it Ular? Admiral Ular? Wolf? I don't think you can just keep saying Wolf.
I think it's Wolf.
I don't think.
Clone Wars
Wolf,
announcer.
Two wolves inside of you? Admiral Yularen.
That's it. Wolf Yularen. Admiral Wolf Yularen. It's Wolf Yularen.
Admiral Yularen. He's also the announcer. He's like, you got to come back. And she's like, no, I can make it. And then people get fucking killed.
See, his name's Wolf Yularen.
Well, thank you. Wolf Blitzer.
No, it's not Wolf Blitzer. It's Wolf Yularen.
Okay. Well, if you say so. So they end up coming back, just barely are able to get away. They get, and so she loses soldiers. And there's this real, like, sort of directness from Anakin. And then, he's just like, you needed to follow orders. And she, like, calls him out. She's just like, you don't. And he's like, that's exactly why I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah, I wrote down the line, did you train her to not follow orders? Yeah, you did.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's great.
But and then he's talking to her and says, he's not like an asshole about it. And like, well, yeah, like, do as I say, not as I do. He's just like, no, it's because, yeah, I understand. And sometimes these choices we make, they are the wrong choices. And
also, it's irresponsible to put a Padawan in charge of a military operation, but also we're not at that point in the Clone Wars to be deconstructing that yet.
You're right. Also, let's just go Let's just go textual. Like, not metatextual, nothing like that. Let's just go.
Not metatextual, not extra textual.
Just straight textual.
Let's not bring in Aspen's favorite TV show, Ahsoka.
Yeah, well, yeah, and maybe this assumes more context, but
right here, just the art, the Star Wars that we have seen up to now.
There are not enough Jedi to lead.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost like it has to be. You know what I mean? Like from what they have said or what we have seen, everyone is so distributed that these Padawans, these 14-year-old Padawans, are military generals and commanders. In and of itself, it's absolutely ridiculous. But
yeah, they've talked about this in other episodes where, who was it? Plo Koon's apprentice.
Plo Koon, well,
maybe not Plo Koon, but
the
Kit
bro.
Fisto?
No, but the guy who
who I'm talking about.
Yeah, because this is in the Lair of Grievous episode, right?
Yeah.
Yes. That little bro.
And he's
Calamari, like, yeah.
Yes,
Calamari, yeah.
He's like, the system's kind of corrupt. We got to burn it down. And the presiding Master Jedi on there is like, we're not. Not.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is why I think that any kind of conversation around like the structure of the Jedi is faulty, and it truly is. Like, it's not necessarily a structure to be looking at with and admiring, especially at this point. Possibly, maybe never. If other pieces are to be believed, like what is it to be this sort of peacekeeping yet cop-like body? It's almost like just be honest about what you are, but that's its own thing. That's its own thing. And I do feel like has a little bit of an starts to get a little bit thematically into the Star Trek episode as well. Because there's, surprise. So we also watched Star Trek. We're not just a Star Wars. We're not just a Star Wars podcast. There are a ton.
This is the correct Star Trek sound effect. There we go.
Did you still have yop in there?
No, I don't.
You took off, dude, that's right. You took out yop, my favorite sound effect.
It was a great sound effect, but I think we need a lot more listeners in order to justify that extremely niche sound effect.
What about one?
That would be good.
One.
Personally, I swapped it out for a great sound clip.
What is it? Oh, is it
Sexy Gungan?
God damn it. Fuck. Right.
George Lucas is so weird horny.
I know.
I think he's because the Star Wars up to this point is so sexless.
I know.
And then when his horniness comes out in the worst ways.
Nasty. I know. Listen, that's what happens when you suppress it. It comes out too weird.
Speaking of suppressing information.
There you go. Beautiful. Did you just navigate back so that you could come up with your own segue?
Huh? No.
Just navigate back. Kenny, did you try to take my segue away from me and navigate back to Star Wars so we could go back to Star Trek? So you could add
speaking of trying to take someone's agency away, we need to talk about Rayla.
Right? Rayna?
Ryloth?
Rayna?
Requiem
Ryloth.
That's a commonality. There are two things that start with R. Whoa.
Filled with women.
Can you imagine if we were doing Star Trek, Star Wars, and Batman and having to find the thematic commonality between that?
Which Batman?
All
of them. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every single piece of Batman that moves at 24 frames a second. So like starting with the serials, then going through every episode of the Batman TV show.
What are other frame rates?
Starting in the silent era, it was manual frame rates. So because you're doing hand crank stuff.
Was there Batman in the silent era?
There was not Batman in the silent era, but there's stuff that like influenced Batman.
Go.
And then other frame rates include 48 frames per second, 30 frames per second, the most common one that you're watching through video. Soap operas are filmed at 29.97.
Wow.
48 frames, which I think The Hobbit was shot at 48 frames per second.
Okay.
You got 120 frames per second, which I believe is what Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk and Gemini Man were shot at. A whole bunch of frame rates, Aspen.
Thank you for telling me.
You're welcome. And if Batman were to enter the fray.
Yeah. And much like Batman is haunted by his past, so is this guy in this episode.
Flint and Rayna.
I did it.
Yeah.
He has definitely danced with the devil in the pale moonlight.
For sure.
Probably. He's lived. He was born in 3000 something BC.
Yeah, man. This is a good app.
I think it's a good app too. I think it brings up a lot of complicated ideas that make me uncomfortable, and that's fine.
I think it is a thematically confused episode. I think that there are definitely versions of this episode that could be much, much better. But the episode that I was pretty satisfied with.
And there are episodes with similar themes that are just done poorly. So
yeah,
I will take it.
Such as one of the first things. There's What Are Little Girls Made Of?
Right.
What are the first season, which was pretty good. Let me look at this spreadsheet.
I don't know.
So I can quantitatively say what it.
Kenny, this is not a good night for Aspen's name memory.
That was the one with Chapel's husband or Chapel's fiance, Dr. Corby.
Oh God, yeah. Well,
Christine.
Christine. Oh God. Well, this episode, I got to tell you, I like. Maybe I'm just hey, you're looking at me so serious. Maybe I'm just a product of my current mystery box world, or also because I've been watching a lot of Murder, She Wrote. But I do think the like double reveal of the episode's really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of wild for you to be like, so like Spock throughout the whole thing. This is not thematic. This is just kind of like fun stuff.
Yes.
It's just like Spock being like, so these are like Da Vinci's 100%, except they're not because they're made with modern paint. And you're just like, what could it be?
Love that he knows that. Just
He's
love that he looks at a painting and is able to be like, well, clearly that's Da Vinci.
And he's like playing Brahms.
How
And
do
he's
you
like,
know?
no one knows. Okay, this is definitely Brahms. He even knows what Brahms' handwriting is like, apparently. And he's just
How
like,
do you know?
but yeah, how do you know, buddy?
How do you know that?
He's just loves.
Do you think that whenever
human
Spock hung out with other Vulcans were like, you remember that? You're a dang little freak.
Probably. Well, they were definitely calling him a freak. That's for sure.
Yeah, according to the 2009 J.J. Abrams movie.
That's true. I think I probably do. Confused too much with that. But it's a fabulous movie, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
It's look at that. Look at that. That's pretty.
Yeah. I gotta get these movies. I gotta get all the Star Trek movies on 4K.
Okay.
The only Star Trek 4Ks that I have are Strange New Worlds, which
cute. Star Trek, okay. Yeah. So there's a fun thing going on throughout the episode where he's just like, there's this stuff. He's like trying to get Kirk to pay attention to him, and Kirk's just like, not now, Spock. I'm in love. Very funny. And then so the reveal of it is just like rad. And then the final reveal where they like go into that room and they like see more than one Raina, and she's a robot. I was like, also great.
Apparently,
thumbs up.
Apparently, in my notes, I wrote Raina's a bobot.
She's a bobot.
That's very funny.
A robot.
Good job, Pass Kenny.
A bobot. She's yeah. I think those are fun reveals. And they also have consequences. They're not just like dumb shit. It's not there's just like, oh, this guy all along. There's now a reason for it. It leads to something. There's now a consequence to finding this out, which is violence. Like you're going to be killed basically, and everyone else too.
Mm-hmm.
But also the kind of origin of her in this idea of the concept of what it is. We're always coming back to the concept of what it is to be a human, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, you could live forever. You could learn everything there is ever to learn. But if you fall in love and then watch that love of your life die over these different people that you could love and have connection with, that they die over and over again, like, of course, you'd be driven to say, well, what actually matters is connection, and how can I seek that? Now, there's a real creepiness in the idea of it being like a little young lady. I mean, she's a robot, but still, there's something to be like wondered about in the idea of the creation of a perfect woman, which, speaking of bodily agency, right? But that in and of itself is a complicated thing. We're going to set that aside, but we'll definitely come back to it.
We're going to come back to it.
But that kind of idea of what actually matters in humanity, and it is that companionship, it's connection, it is love, it is joy, you know?
It's the second episode in a row where it's about a woman's agency.
Woman.
That's interesting.
Happens a lot. I mean, in this.
Yeah. But like
happens a lot, like in bad ways.
Yeah. What was rolling around in my mind today in doing research for Requiem for Methuselah, and the podcast that I was listening to, what was cute?
You. Yeah. Doing research. Doing research.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Oh my god, so cute.
Oh my gosh.
Like you.
Listening to the Mission Log podcast and listening to what they have to say, and this was before These Are the Voyages was released, so they couldn't dig into it. And learned that one of the notes from NBC was that they specifically requested women's stories, and what they interpreted as women's stories in 1968 and 1969 were just more love stories, because women aren't interested in anything else.
Who's to say, you know?
Who's to say?
Who's to say?
Who's to say?
Should get a focus group of cis men to tell us. I certainly don't know.
What do women like? What's the opposite of football? What's the opposite of beer? Oh, I can't research.
Periods. They love periods.
Can someone give me some wings? I'm gonna lose my mind. And again, that's me doing an impression of me.
Great job, soldier.
How's the research group, honey? Oh, gosh, it was so hard. I had to think about what women liked. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Do you need a foot rub or a sandwich or a blanket? Yes, completely demure wife. You're so perfect. Oh. Is this a good character?
This is Chris. You just keep going.
This is great.
You do both. Oh, great.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think you should take it on the road.
Sure, I'll put that in my JFL audition. What
we're talking about. What women want. The Mel Gibson film.
We're talking about this episode, which bothers to have a character who apparently is the greatest man that has ever walked the earth.
Yeah.
And instead of kind of unpacking the existentialism within that, becomes really what makes a woman a woman.
Oh, I mean, I agree. I did take, by the end of it, I did take the I took the, like, the existentialism of it became very strong. It was, I think it was strong throughout, and it was very clear by the end.
Sure.
But there are different, better ways it could have been done.
Sure.
As always, we don't like the idea of just woman being reduced to whatever the tool is of great men. You know, it's a bit overdone. Am I right?
It's weird. And the episode, I mean, boy, there's a whole bunch of walking mechanics, but also I'm sitting here and I can think of a billion complaints for this episode, but also I sincerely just liked it. It was a good episode, and I'm trying to quantify
that was part of it.
What the X factor is. Why is this a good episode?
I think, here's my guess. One, I think it's written very well. Yes. I think it's paced extremely well.
Yeah.
I think everyone is having their own clear moments where they have strong feelings about those moments that are presented. They have strong emotions. And I think there's no downtime. There's always something happening. And there's space for exploration of ideas, even if
there's space for exploration of ideas. It's Star Trek.
I'm gonna kill you.
Sure, I deserve it.
I should have said I wanted wings.
Oh. What do you mean these are dry lemon pepper rub wings? Oh no! Oh no! They are boneless though. That's good. That means you get more wing.
I like that he's dumb.
He's dumb, but also he's trying. The thing that I think makes this character endearing is that he's sincerely trying. Very hard.
He's trying really hard to do something. Poop, maybe. Yeah,
it's nothing to do with my Miata. I gotta trick that sucker out.
Hey, Chad.
Yeah, boss.
You ever take your Miata out and then you make the headlights blink?
Yeah, dude.
Like you have them blink at each other? Yeah. Other Miatas?
I have it blink out in Morse code. Wings, dude.
Me too, man. Except for me, it's Pepsi Cola.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, now think about the Cola Wars. When will this forever war end, my dude?
It's funny. So, the X factor of this episode.
The X factor of Requiem for Methuselah. I mean, I think I dare say you probably hit the nail on the head, because the moments can seem quite disparate and unconnected. For starters, they're coming to the planet to look for Rytalon because there's an outbreak of Rigelian fever on the ship.
Rigelian Rytalon.
That's right. And then they happen to find Flint, who turns out he's every greatest man that's ever been on Earth.
Sure is.
And you think that the episode would unpack that more than it does, but before that, they introduce you to Raina, who's a lady, but she's got a mystery woman.
Thank you, Jesus Christ.
But there's a mystery afoot with Raina. Not only that, Kirk is immediately in love with her.
Just into her in a second.
So fast.
So fast.
This might be the fastest that Kirk has ever fallen head over heels for a woman before.
I don't hate it. At this point, we're in such Kirk drift. Like,
yeah,
it truly is. He is.
Yes.
I think at this point, bro is just going for it.
He's just going for it.
So,
yeah. So, meanwhile, the outbreak of Rigelian fever still very much happening on the ship. It's very deadly. We've established that in the beginning of the episode. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
I think the episode is moving with these other in the shell game that is this episode of Star Trek. The shells are moving.
Yeah.
The shells are moving so quickly that you're just like, yeah, because there's the mystery of Flint, there's the mystery of Raina, and whenever it gets sleepy, you can always go, we got to get the Rytalon.
Wait. Which?
And then we also have the M4 thing.
It does give them all something to do.
Yeah.
Which
all
is
of them
funny.
are tied together enough.
Right.
It feels cohesive.
And I think it does have to do with the fact that it's like, if you're going to have our classic trio on this planet, that means Bones always has something to do. He's always worried. Okay, we got this Rytalon done, but it turns out that like it's not going to work. We need to fix it. Great. So he's got opinions. He's got stuff. Spock is over here doing his little mystery, playing his little piano, figuring it out.
He has an outstanding line in this episode, which is, I am close to experiencing an unexpected emotion.
Oh my
God.
God.
What a king.
What a king.
We do love a king.
And he says envy. Oh, there's that fabulous piece where when they first come down there, right? That's like during that exact scene where like Bones is like, hey, you want a brandy? Of course he doesn't want a brandy, blah, blah, blah. And he's like kind of like making fun of him. And Spock is like looking at the painting and he's just like, thank you, doctor, I will have a brandy. And it's funny. And Spock is like, oh, we're gonna have to deal with a drunk Vulcan. I was like, I wish you would. That'd be rad.
I bet a drunk Vulcan is much like my father whenever he gets drunk. Just get quieter.
Oh. Yeah, I guess it could go a few different ways. It could go quieter, it could go a little violent, very scary, very strong, or it could go
very touchy feeling.
Very this side of paradise.
And they're just like, I never get to say this.
No.
I never get to say this. You are my best friend.
I love you so much.
Well, that's it. Like, do you ever think about how you're my best friend?
It's you. I love you so much.
So much.
And if you died, I would die. Live long and prosper. Spock. That was my performance of Spock while drunk. Thank you so much. Give me the role. Yeah. They've all got something to do that is driving them, and they're having reactions to everything.
And then, what is also interesting, I circled this in my big notes.
Sure. Bobit.
M for the Bobit, Raina the Bobit. Flint the Eternal Man
Sure.
interrogates the notion of what Star Trek is.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Because Kirk
Yes.
is willing to do literally anything in order to get the right talent, even use force. And Flint is like, you're claiming that you're a peaceful people, but there's a contradiction because why does your ship have weapons? Why do you have weapons?
Yes.
Why are you coming down here? I don't entirely trust you. You're
Yeah.
just like all of the other humans.
Yeah. Yes.
And it doesn't really answer how they are better
No.
in this situation. Because again, the episode is playing a shell game and keeping enough shells moving.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have time to focus.
Uh-huh.
And again, that's absolutely fine. It works in this case, in that intangible X factor.
Right.
That it is loosely connected enough. But
it's always my favorite. I always love the interrogation of true, like the idea of, are we as good as we are stating we are?
And depending on which iteration of Star Trek you're watching, the answer can vary.
Right.
With this Star Trek, yeah, humans made it with Next Generation. Yeah, we made it with DS9. We're good, but we have a ways to go with Voyager. That's answered by Janeway killing Tuvix. Enterprise, they're still fighting everyone. Discovery vacillates.
I had a thought.
Great.
Mm-hmm. The end. Always thinking up here. This little noggin is always going. It's always going. I know. Sometimes I do more than like exist for the existential pleasure of some millennia man.
Again, it's like poetry. So if they rhyme.
Yeah. I was wondering about my own personal vendetta against Star Trek actually being as good as it says it is.
Ooh. Yes, let's have this conversation.
I'm constantly like, I'm this dude. I'm Flint. I'm just like, but you go around this galaxy, like, and you're not just being diplomatic. You're coming in with a lot of cowboy power and you think you're so good. You're still a militaristic structure, no matter what you say.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very personal thing. But here's a fun thing. Here's my personal context. I'm watching this in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And I am like, I don't trust anything right now.
Yeah.
And it probably is why the stories of Star Wars I think a lot of people watch Star Trek and they're like, this is the ideal. And I can feel hopeful watching this thing. And I just don't think I feel like I can trust that. I'm like, okay, sounds great. Like,
Star Trek was caught up in that space race, NASA optimism of the time, which is so interesting. And I mean, I literally cannot put my feet back in the 60s and see what that felt like. But it's in the pop culture that I've consumed that reflects specifically the space race of the 1960s. Very rarely does it feel like anyone that is working within NASA and within the space industry is like, we are wasting a lot of resources to send a man to the moon because they wasted so much of it, but rarely does it interrogate that because it was for a greater mission, which was, well, to defeat the Soviets, but also to prove that we could do it, which is wild. That's a wild notion.
Yeah.
That we can just do it. And feels so, whenever I say it like that, it's purposeless. It feels purposeless.
No, but even you talking about it like that, I'm like, oh, that is so, I know defeat the Soviets, but there was so much hope. There's so much excitement around that. I will tell you.
Depends on who you ask.
Well, that's true.
It depends on who you ask because in the Damon Chazelle Neil Armstrong movie First Man starring Ryan Gosling, that was the first time where I was like, oh my gosh, did people not like going to the moon? And there's a song in it called Why.We on the Moon. That kind of emblematic of
I know that song.
And then there's
yes, dude. Yes, bro.
Yeah. And then there's the song from some humorist about Werner von Braun and the fact that they're partnering with an actual Nazi in order to make the rocket. program work. But whatever, we were able to do it.
Kenny,
isn't that the paradox of Star Trek, where you're just like, don't look at all of this stuff. Look at what we can be.
Oh my God, Kenny. I mean,
and then Star Wars, informed by post-Nixonian, post-Vietnam distrust of governments.
Current Vietnam.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Post at that point, 77. But people living through it. Yeah. Post. Exactly.
And so baked into the text,
yes,
is regardless of who is America in this situation, who is Vietnam, who is the opposition to America. There's just a distrust of governmental authority.
Yes.
And we have some rebels, but we know the hierarchy of the Empire: Emperor, Darth Vader, Grand Moff Tarkin.
Mm-hmm.
Hierarchy, and then the rebels don't really have a hierarchy that we know of. We know that there's some loose generals out there, but everyone's just trying to fight the aggressors, which is the ruling government.
Yep. Yeah. It's indicative of a current system that was a previous system that is just in a constant cycle of, as we have said multiple times, neoliberalism to fascism to neoliberalism to fascism.
And then you can couple that with where Lucas and Roddenberry were coming from. Lucas, who went to film school and wanted to make genuine art films, non-narrative tone poems. He's an artiste that just backed his way into narrative filmmaking. Mm-hmm. And so more than likely, he's going to have some strong political opinions that are anti-authoritarian, especially considering that he was partnered up with Francis Ford Coppola, who throughout the 70s and 80s was just like, fuck the studios. Studios are awful. We can do it ourselves. And George Lucas, acolyte of Francis Ford Coppola, was like, wow, Francis can do anything.
Yeah, he sure can. Make a non-woke
And then you couple that with Roddenberry, who before being a writer was...
Gigolo.
That's right. He was a gigolo. His original name was Gigolo Rod and Barry.
What was he?
He was an Air Force pilot.
Okay.
And he was a cop.
Right. You told me this. I blocked it out.
And so baked into the text of Star Trek is an appreciation of rank structure and a fondness for military structure. Because that's the world. And so you have someone that is fond of systems, is trying to build a perfect system. Well,
right.
Fond of systems enough that benefit himself, rather, because like Lucas, he's also anti-studio.
Kenny.
Yeah, boss.
Help me work through this thought process.
Sure, man. This is great. This is a great discussion. I love this.
I really appreciate you bringing up the inherent injustice of putting so many resources toward the space race when there are so many people who, like, you could be putting those resources toward healthcare.
How much of that money could have helped healthcare? Yeah.
But in 69, you're right. It was actually about it was about American exceptionalism, and it was paired with the concept and the idea of space. And it was inextricable from the space race, this idea of winning, right?
Not only American exceptionalism, but Aspen. America was so great that it created an indelible moment in history that transcended every nation, where everyone in the world stopped.
Yes.
And it wasn't just an exception. It wasn't just American exceptionalism for a brief moment. It was human exceptionalism. And who was in charge of that human exceptionalism? America. Proof positive that America is the best because America did it. We created this moment that proves how great humanity is.
So that is, I think, this concept is that we're talking about this thing that is literally beyond our world, otherworldly. Mm-hmm. It is more than just the United States, in ostensibly, because it is saying to the whole world, look at what we can do. And I think I never read Contact. I watched Contact, but I from
Could
hearing
be.
what the book was like with Sagan, a lot of what it's talking about is many people from across countries coming together and working together. It wasn't just it wasn't just one person, or just a few Americans. And I do think that there is inherent to it. Like, I do not think that it is not true that there is this idea of we can be more than just ourselves. And yet, it is still driven by, but it's the United States
And that's
that
the
does
paradox.
it. And that's the paradox
of Star Trek.
That's the paradox. And so
we can be anything, and
Right.
it's driven, as past and hopefully future guest Jesse Earl said, filtered through the lens of Eurocentrism,
Mhm.
Western West-centrism,
Yes.
as we've talked in previous episodes.
So
recasting a Jewish Canadian as the archetype of an American man.
I do wonder if it just does not ring true to me. So I feel this like grating sensation.
Mm-hmm. And here's the difference, because I mean, obviously I'm biased for Star Trek. Star Trek has been there before I was able to form memories.
Mhm.
That's how long Star Trek has been around.
Mhm.
That and Star Wars intertwined. Both of those suckers intertwined. I don't remember a first time watching either, because both were in circulation in my household when I was a young baby.
Young fling, if you will.
Come fresh out of the oven and then right next to a VCR and pressed play. That's how fresh it was.
Cute.
But for some reason, and maybe it's because quite frankly, I was a very sad child. I was a very sad child. I was a very lonely child. Aesthetically, there was something way more interesting about Star Trek to me whenever I was in elementary school. And then whenever I was a teenager, I was more of a Star Wars kid. And then as I've gotten older, I've gotten way, way more into Star Trek over Star Wars. But there's always been something that has appealed to me with this notion of an impossible utopia, and a valid criticism of Star Trek, which is I cannot connect with this, or rather, to put it in your terms, something great's inauthentic about it, because there's something because humans just made it. How'd they make it? What does that look like? How do they not have money? What does the governmental structure look like? What are all of these ins and outs questions, as opposed to the thing that appeals to me? The propaganda of Star Trek, I think, which is they just did it.
The propaganda of Star Trek is they just did it. And then DS9 gets to come in and answer some of those questions, those very valid questions, and say, with a lot of fucking bloodshed and hard work.
Yeah.
And a lot of people suffering.
Yeah. What cost Utopia?
Yeah. And
but like the optimism, especially in Next Generation, where Picard can literally talk with anything and deflate a conflict.
God, imagine.
Come on.
It's wild to me.
And then Star Trek grew back into a more action-oriented thing because everyone was trying to get more into the original series, and Next Generation was known as kind of a sleepier show, even though I think everyone considers Next Generation to be the better show because it has a more sophisticated palette to work from the late 80s and early 90s. But also they do sit around a table a lot.
Cool. So
that Star Wars bothers to, with the prequels, ask how the heck did this happen? Well, really, with Return of the Jedi, asks how did this world happen?
Right.
How did this galaxy happen? What got us to this moment? You can't trust authority. And what is your soul going to be in a system that you belong to?
Yeah, dude.
Which Star Wars is, in that regard, more realistic.
I mean, that's like a little bit more honest about it, I think. And I think that was my bad segue of I can't even remember what we're talking about when we're talking about Storm Over
Requiem
Ryloth.
for Methuselah versus Storm Over Ryloth.
But like with like the point of Storm Over Ryloth and that sort of commonality and that piece there is something kind of wild about Storm Over Ryloth and this. I'm glad that we got to see Ahsoka sitting with this horror. But there is also still this kind of terror of war, this additional horror of war, which is like, hey, this sucks. You lost your squadron. That's part of being a leader. And it was like, right? Like the idea that like, that's just the game, man. People are going to die is just part of what it is to be in the middle of a literal war, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of it, is just like human lives are forfeit for the greater good of the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a real barbarism of humanity, or whatever that might look like. To be able to get to what you say is this ideal, but it's still to get to that point, right? And who are we? And especially the Jedi going from peacekeepers to like so easily slipping into the role of literal commanders, war commanders.
Both shows.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot. I mean, the commonality is that both involve some form of imperialism.
Mm-hmm.
Where Clone Wars, I mean, both of them are, whereas Star Trek posits that it is a benevolent form of imperialism.
Mm-hmm.
Though that comes very close to breaking their own code within Requiem for Methuselah. As with all of the information that we've learned from Star Wars and up to this point in Clone Wars, we know that the Jedi and the clones are carrying out an imperialism.
They're carrying out an imperialism
through the guise of liberation.
Right.
Which can feel false, and you're grating against it. Which is also one of the poetic things about the Clone Wars, unfortunately, right?
Unfortunately. Anyway. What a time. Am I right? 2024 election. Go vote. Did you vote yet?
No, I have not.
Go vote, my dude.
Probably vote on Friday.
Yeah, go vote, my dude.
Yeah, man. But speaking of voting.
Yeah. What do you want?
A long time ago, start date this week. I courted a beau, I dated a geek, but none of them could warp my drive into hyperspace. The best of both worlds kept me in second place. Captain's log on a holocron. I wanted a snog, I penned a song. 17 more minutes of thighs in super high def. Aboard the USS Enterprise, DTF. Don't you take my Ewok lighter and clip it. Don't you take my red shirt buddy and nip it. If you spill the tea, I'm gonna sip it. I starship it.
Aspen, what are we doing this week?
We're going to name our favorite ships that fly through the sky and our favorite ships that go geese, geese, geese. Geese, geese, geese. Kenny.
Yeah, boss.
Kenny.
Yeah, boss.
Have we named the Nemodian battleship?
We sure have not. The Trade Federation.
The Trade Federation battleship. The donut ship. The one that, a different one, but another one that Anakin destroyed when he tried spinning.
That was a good trick.
That was a good trick. But in this case, Anakin destroys it by just shoving the defender right into it.
Now, okay. So Aspen,
Yeah.
Let's bring up our friends at, I'll say it, our sister podcast, the Holdo Maneuver. But particularly the podcast's title sake, the titular Holdo Maneuver.
Titular.
Now, with those dorks online that are like Star Wars isn't Star Wars anymore.
Well,
one of their biggest criticisms is that the Holdo maneuver breaks canon.
shut up.
Why? By saying who would throw
ship.
a big ship through another big ship? Meanwhile, your precious Dave Filoni,
Well, your precious Anakin Skywalker is the one who did it.
sure, but your precious Dave Filoni directed it.
Do they really? Sorry, do those assholes really love Dave Filoni? I just want to.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, they didn't like him when he made Ahsoka matter, so now they like him.
Like with anything, you give it 10 years and people look back on it with fondness.
Sure.
And that's the arc of the Clone Wars has gone from no one wanted this to this might actually be this is actually the best Star Wars, period.
Sure.
Thanks to our God King, Dave Filoni. Who,
yeah.
You know, he's doing a great job here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, if you're bothering to cherry pick canon,
yes,
you need look no further than the fact that Anakin Skywalker throws a big honking ship into a bigger honking ship.
Throws a ship into another ship.
It seems pretty expensive, a waste of resources. I'm sorry to use such harsh language, but I disagree strongly.
Thought we were gonna have to bleep you for a second. Here, I'll do it for you. Fuck you.
And twerps, a lot of them.
Bozos. Am I right?
Bozos.
Real little weird guys. Weird guys.
And they are, make no mistake, they're weird guys.
Yeah, he throws a goddamn ship into another ship, and it's so great.
Pulling what I called in my notes the Holdo Maneuver.
You know, one of my favorite things too to see is when characters.
I do this.
Yeah.
This is one of your favorite things to see.
Yeah. It's cute. Oh, what was I gonna say? Oh, you know, when people are on holograms, talking to each other, but they're on other ships and those ships are getting blown out of the sky, and they just the hologram, they'll disappear and they're just ah! It's just it sizzles out. I love that. It happens when, we didn't even talk about that it's this battleship is being headed by Mar Took, who is an Emodian separatist commander. And when he realizes what's happening, he is like, I'm out of here. So all these battle droids are like, Roger.
Mar Took, where, thanks to the Filoni Zoni, we had a dream of a quote regarding Mar Took.
Yep.
Who has quote unquote,
yes,
Mick Jagger, Donald Rumsfeld mouth.
Incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. You know who said that?
We like to make sure that he has a Mick Jagger, Donald Rumsfeld type of mouth.
I spent a long night that night doing a bit of a redo. What a soft-spoken sweet man. He was unhappy with the designs. That's his sweet way of being so the designs were absolutely horrible, absolutely terrible. Yeah. I had to do so much work that night. Yeah. My wife was angry. My children hate me. Just so I could make this Donald Rumsfeld mouth. The other piece is that Mar Took is named after Dave Filoni's cat. Also a joy of a thing. But yeah.
Originally, I wanted the whole planet to be my cat.
I wish. It's fantastic.
With a planet that was made of cats, we had to work on fur textures. What would fur look like whenever it is miles across? How does it move in space with what does fur look like without friction? In space, does it have the mass that it does? What does it look like whenever adjusting to gravity? And then Dave said, you misunderstood me. I said, I have 2 cats, to which I responded by going, I just spent 96 hours on this. I haven't slept. I haven't seen my wife. You couldn't have you've been here 3 other times for approvals.
Wow, Killian, sounds like you're having a bad day.
Unquestionably.
This is the real show.
We're doing a lot of character work. My favorite ship
Is Dave and Killian?
Is Dave and Killian. My favorite ship is Ahsoka Starfighter.
Pretty fab.
Which, I wrote down, is this Anakin's old Starfighter? Because I believe it has the same colors that Anakin's Starfighter did in the 2D Clone Wars.
I don't know. I would love that. Would love if that were the case.
No, it's not. It's red.
Okay.
Which I believe that's the color of. No, Anakin's. Why am I saying that it's Anakin Starfighter? No, these are Obi-Wan's colors because it's red.
Oh, cute.
Which is fascinating. Why would I say that it's Anakin Starfighter? Because it's clearly not. So Ahsoka Tano is Delta 7B Ether Sprite.
Oh, cute. I've said cute a lot because everything's so cute. You're mostly cute. You know, this is a like, not the winner, but I do want to call out also the Resolute, the other ship that they do the ship on its side trick, and all the fighters come out from behind it. They like make it look. They bring them in and like making them think that like, oh, the ship is not doing like it's vulnerable, and then they go. Phoom! Worth noting, just because in the Filoni Zone he talks about how he read about that as a maneuver Thrawn does in Heir to the Empire, and I just thought that was so cool.
That's great, wonderful. Heir to the Empire, a great book.
We know it's not, but it's a cool idea, and it's fun.
Well, talking to all those twerps online that don't like the Holdo Maneuver, and they're like, Heir to the Empire is so sick. Thrawn's such a badass.
Yeah, and
he's such a badass.
Here are all these ideas that are common ideas. Anyways, romantic ships.
Aspen, you better not steal my ship this week.
I don't think I know what your ship is.
Well, don't steal it.
I'm gonna go with the straightforward one, man. I'm gonna go Reyna Kirk.
A classic. In the sense that it is in this episode.
It is in this episode. I mean, it's a pretty boring one. However, he kept hugging her and holding her close. And it was very gentle and very sweet.
Fascinating, Aspen.
I don't know.
Fascinating.
I mean, again, we touched on it. There is always this underlying thing where, especially when this woman is represented as being kind of young, there's like this nubile element. Like in this space, she's very smart, but she clearly feels like the ward of someone and maybe younger, right?
Just to make me sound smart, the born sexy yesterday trope.
Yeah, that's it. And like, but you know, this is one of those where like I thought the actor playing her was really fabulous.
She's great.
So many times
loved her big honking wig.
Yeah, her big honking wig is honking. Gosh. So many times it is saved by, I think, like
a wig.
Usually. A good lace front will do it for you. You know, like this kind of, there's such a creepy kind of underlying thing of like, she's a robot. So it's like, what does it look like to awaken these like feelings? But she does have this like beautiful kind of bewildering look to her face. I don't know. Maybe I just thought that she was very, well, like kind of this like curious about the entire world and this like gentleness. And yeah, it's got its gross elements and its gross feelings, but I thought that I think she like sold it for me. And I think Kirk in love is a very charming thing. He is very gentle. So, you know, I don't hate it. So did I steal yours?
You did not steal my ship. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
My ship for the week, and it's pretty I'll give you 3 guesses of who my ship is for the week. And we got 2 episodes to work from.
Okay. Oh, right. It could be anyone. It could be anything.
Yeah.
We've already done that. We only have so many people we can look at. We could look at, what's his name? Finch?
Flint?
Flint and his other robot.
Aspen, that's it.
Flint and his other robot. Yep.
Wow, you got it. You got it on the first try. Good job. My ship is Flint and M4. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when M4 gets destroyed, M4 is back and better than ever.
It's
Like,
true.
It's like no time has passed. And you bet, as soon as Flint could build a robot, built that M4 and built that M4 to last. You know what I mean?
Oh, God.
You know what I mean?
Christ. Oh, my gosh.
None
I think...
just M4 is a body down, but just removed, just kind of deconstructed.
He's just a sphere. He's just a sphere boy.
Yeah, which I mean, for boys, for folks with peni, that's all you need. You just need a sphere.
Actually, the plural of penis in Latin is actually penes.
For folks with penes,
it is.
You just need a cylinder.
It's a third.
Aspen, isolate that. Make sure and like run a promotional campaign to get listeners with that one.
Penis.
Penes.
Penes. It has a third declension. Now,
also the name of the female lead in the Forrest Gump porn parody, Forrest Hump.
Forrest.
Penes.
Oh no. Oh God. I think you and I came in.
Hump, Forrest Hump. And so I just kept humping.
No, stop. It's not cute anymore. Not cute. Not cute. I think we did it.
Yeah. Flint and the M4 goes on the spreadsheet.
Yep.
Outstanding.
Outstanding.
But it's not hey, let's give Kenny compliments for his outstanding ship work. No.
No.
We must go back to the original conceit, the central conceit of this podcast. We're trying to answer the most important question in fandom, which is better, Star Trek or Star Wars?
Yeah, dude.
Again, the episodes that we are pitting against each other is Requiem from Methuselah from Star Trek, the original series, versus Storm Over Ryloth from Star Wars, The Clone Wars. I will go first with Requiem from Methuselah. I'm feeling charitable today. I'll give it a 6.5.
I'm going to give it the most solid of 7s.
Hell yeah. You do love to see it.
No,
I want to give it a 7 too.
Okay. I
really did want to give it a 7, but for some reason I was talking myself down from it. But it feels like a 7.
Yeah, game recognizes game,
It's a really good episode. I really enjoyed myself. Good performances, good ideas, fun things to talk about, fun things to mull over. James Daly as Flint. It's a great performance.
I'm telling you, guest performances in Star Trek are like banger, dude.
Bangers. Oops, all bangers.
Like they often save an episode for me. I wonder if that's part of it. If this episode didn't have such strong supporting actors,
and also
might not have worked.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, that could be the X factor too. And the central conceit that, which bumps up against Roddenberry's humanist vision of all the things were achieved by humans, and instead went to that kind of chariot of the gods thing, where it was all kind of achieved by aliens or this extra worldly thing, and instead a lot of the great men of the world were actually this one guy. Kind of, it robs power of the human propaganda that is Star Trek. But the episode still works, even with me fundamentally disagreeing that I don't want this episode to exist. Yeah. That's how good of an episode it is.
Well, I propose that it's okay that one guy was all those other guys, because there have been so many other extraordinary people throughout history, many of them not just some fucking white dude. So
how dare you rally against Roddenberry's humanist propaganda? But it's still anyone's game as we pop over to Storm Over Ryloth, where I am going to give this one, I'm feeling it, an 8.
An 8.
This was a superb episode. Probably one of the best pieces of Star Wars that I've watched since the 2D Clone Wars, and might even be better.
Yeah.
It is a really fun, unexpected, and intelligent episode of Star Wars, anchored by a really strong premise. And
also good performances.
Yeah, the plot takes a backseat, which has been kind of rare for Star Wars for a while. And I really enjoyed that, to focus on characters and emotions. It's very much needed, and it is very enjoyed on my part. That's why I give it an 8.
I'm going to give it a little bit higher. I'm going to give it an 8.3.
Hell yeah, you do love to see it.
I love my girl.
Interesting, because I gave Defenders of Peace a 9, but I'm giving this one an 8, and I think this episode is better, but it doesn't matter, because the numbers don't lie, which means Requiem for Methuselah has a paltry 7 versus Storm Over Ryloth 8.15, which means, Aspen,
I'm the winner, baby.
Truly,
really,
I think
we're all winners, right?
That's exactly
That's what you're gonna say.
That's exactly what I was going to say, because I feel like it's been pretty weak sauce for a while, and it is nice, like an oasis in the desert, to have 2 great episodes as opposed to one really good episode and one episode where we are just kind of trying to,
very upset,
much like Anakin in the volcano pit on Mustafar, crawling ourselves up with a robot hand.
I hate you. I hate you.
But you know who doesn't hate us? Our patrons.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
For $5 a month, you can get early versions of these episodes as well as extended versions of these episodes. And for $1 a month, we will just say your name on the air.
Cute.
And every single bit helps to pay the bills, so we get to come out net positive, which is pretty darn cool.
That's nice.
I like that. And you too could join the fine auspices of fine folks such as Timothy Sosa, Heidi Rogers, Kevin Miller, Arizona Mark, Austin Aaron, Joel T. Partner, and newest contributor, Baobab Cactus, who found us through the Jesse Earl episode, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield versus Trespass. So to Baobab Cactus, we welcome you. Thank you so much for being a patron. Huge shout out to you. We love you.
Yay.
Nothing. Great. Thank you.
No, I was just thinking, I was just like, oh gosh, so soon to say I love you.
No.
Don't want to overwhelm them.
No. Because Baobab Cactus, as a member of the human race, you inherently have value and you are deserving of love. If it is not love from a person, then it is love from a universe, because you are here and you deserve love.
All right.
So to Baobab Cactus, me and Aspen, love you.
Love you.
Speaking of people that Aspen loves, Joel T. Partner, along with being a patron, is also our composer of the I Starship It theme song. Our main and ending theme song was composed by Mr. Tosin Awofeso. Please visit the show notes in order to get more of his delicious, delectable musical licks. If you want to get in contact with us in a way that's not just signing up for Patreon, why don't you send us an email just like Austin Aaron did at the beginning of the episode? Send us an email at trekwarspod@gmail.com or reach out to us via Instagram or Blue Sky, handles at trekwarspod. Anything else, Aspen?
No.
Aspen?
Yeah?
Aspen.
What?
I love you so much.
I love you. I'm glad you weren't like actually tired of me.
No, I don't think I could ever get tired of you.
Thanks.
Audience, we love you. May the force be with you and live long and prosper.